go on to talk about emergency exit procedures, please.
Ka pai. Tu e te mana aki, rangarahi e te mana rangatira, kia tipu, kia puawai, e ripo ngā wai, e toa awa kairangi. E kai Tiaki ki te whenua, he oranga taio, he oranga tangata, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e, kia ora. So welcome everybody to the Wellington City Council chambers, the new chambers. We've had a number of meetings in here now. The standout feature is the ceiling, obviously, and it is to reflect, no pun intended, the water of the Te Whanganui Tara, the harbour, and generally create a welcoming space in which to deliberate on matters of great importance for the city. In terms of health and safety, exits you can see over there, and in an emergency that door will open. You'll see your way downstairs, down to the ground floor, and the assembly area, the Chief Executive is going to remind me, is the assembly area. The assembly area in the event of an emergency is across the road at the little park. There is a name for the park.
John Islet, it was the
Islet building. The Islet Green, yeah. Yes, which I always thought was a mini part, sort of course, but apparently it wasn't. And if you go out this door here, there will be directions to other stairs that will take you out onto here, just opposite Frank Kitts Park. Toilets are also out those doors and suitably signposted, but otherwise, the building is otherwise completely safe.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, first of all, do we have any apologies for today? So I will note one change. So Kara Pukatapu has resigned from the trust, and the acting at the moment is Holden Hohaia, and his deputy, Dr. Anne-Marie White, who I don't think is here. She might have come today, but that is a change we should note for the future when we hear officially from the trust. Right, second thing is public comment. Do we have any members of the public who want to speak? No. Okay, so now we move to the conflict of interest. So first of all, is everyone check their interests in respect of this committee? And is there anything in today's order paper that they want to identify as something they have an interest in greater than what they've already signalled? No. Okay, so the next thing is the minutes, which were circulated from our last meeting, which was the 13th of March. Everyone happy they're a true and correct record from that last meeting? Yep. So, Perry, you're happy to move, and Anita, you're happy to second. All those in favour, aye, against. Now, I'm just going to say a few things before we move into the agenda. So I don't know whether some of you realise it's just more than a year ago that 5 councils agreed to jointly establish and own a new water organisation, and having decided it was the best option for the long-term well-being of our councils. And Tiaki formally was incorporated and the board appointed 7 months ago. I've read all of the submissions, well, certainly the summary in front of us today, and there is significant community concern around the speed of the process, around the costs, and that is really well reflected in the public and partner committee feedback, so from all of your councils and from the public. And our communities, of course, are feeling the cost of living pressures. All of us in New Zealand are, so we're cognisant of that, I hope. But as a council group, we determined to move quickly for 2 main reasons. One is the current arrangements are not fit for purpose, and secondly, to acknowledge the reason the region has underinvested in water assets for a long time. And that was the rationale behind moving more quickly. So I'm sure, like you all, I've read all the feedback and I've read Tiaki Wai's responses, and we're going to hear about those today. I intend moving, with your support, item 14 and 15 that are currently in public excluded once they're discussed, into open. So one of those is the Partners Committee feedback on the draft water services strategy, and one is the amendments to the Constitution and the Partners Agreement. So they, after we have dealt with those in public excluded, we'll move those back out into open. And then just to remind us all that while we, the collective we, because it's not me, but you all set the direction and expectations of Tiaki, they approve the final water strategy, a service strategy and the budget. But as elected members, we all have a role in explaining to our communities, and it came through in the submissions. There's confusion, there's misunderstanding, there's a whole lot of issues out there, and I think we all as a role as elected people to help our communities understand. It's not going to be easy and it's not cheap, and we do have a responsibility to help our communities. We also need to hold the new board and management to account. And if I remind us all, we need to do that constructively and respectfully. And I know I don't need to remind you, but some of your colleagues, we need to do that directly or through you rather than through the media or on social channels. So that's all I was going to say. And now we're going to move on to the verbal updates from the mayors. So I'll go around the room and you can update us on how each of your council meetings went. So shall I start? Who was the most recent? Andrew, I read about you in the paper, so why don't you start?
Wellington City Council does its best to keep out of the media. It's a surprise we even got a story. Acknowledge Tom Hunt. So the Wellington City Council met yesterday, made the number of decisions, the transfer of assets to Tiaki in accordance with the agreements reached, also the share buyback of South Wairarapa District Council. And in the course of the debate, and actually as a result of public submissions as well, reflecting, Chair, what you've just said, there is community concern, I think, because of the documents, the water services strategy that Tiaki has been consulting on, which shows a price path which is frankly terrifying some people. And I think the documentation that's been released about the installation of water meters across the region. So I think it is about being realistic about the effects of those sorts of things. I think there is a balance between acknowledging and accepting that there's been underinvestment in infrastructure, our water services infrastructure, but also accepting that particularly at a time, an extended period of sort of cost of living crunch, that there are going to be limits on households, many households, to meet significant additional cost. So we do have to get that in balance. I also think it is important that there is very close scrutiny on Tiaki, its financial performance, its service performance, its financial projections, to ensure that they are realistic. One of the mandates I've been given by the Wellington City Council is to advocate strongly for the Commerce Commission involvement, not only the involvement that they are consulting on at the moment to expand their powers, but to extend those powers to proper price regulation, because I think water services are a vital utility. We all need water. We need clean, potable water. And that cannot be priced in a way that makes it inaccessible to some, or in some cases, many households. So I think as we transition to these new arrangements, with the framework that we've got, I think we continue to have a responsibility to make sure that what happens delivers good water services strategies, but meets the full breadth of community expectations, which also includes affordability and accessibility.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'll be very brief. We have equally approved the required papers to move forward, and the only comment that I would make is that Tiaki has to be better than Wellington Water. Wellington Water has set a really good trajectory for Tiaki Wai to pick up the mantle and be better. And there are also a lot of controls in place for Tiaki Wai to be better. So just to the community that are fearful, I do have hope that we're going to end up in a situation where water isn't going to be on the front page of the news every few weeks. So that is my sincere hope, but I also believe it to be true. So thank you.
Thank you. Helmut, do you want to make any comments on behalf of your iwi? No? Ken or... No, well, I'll go to Ros then.
So Greater Wellington had its Tiaki Wai decision meeting a couple of weeks ago now, and we had a very, very long debate on Tiaki Wai, and although we did pass all the required decisions, there was not unanimity around our council. And it's fair to say that, it was pleasing that there was a great deal of engagement. At least everyone appreciated the kind of scale and the consequence of the decision we were making. So everyone was fully involved in the debate and putting their best arguments forward. But ultimately, there remains concern that the model that we have, Local Water Done Well has evolved into is not the same model that we were promised at the beginning of this process, that whilst we've transferred our debt, we still have considerable risk in the form of the guarantee and the uncalled capital. And this idea that we would achieve balance sheet separation has clearly been shown to be a nonsense. So significant concerns, but nonetheless, we have signed on. We're looking forward to the future. But in the spirit of that, we, as previously identified, will be putting out our own individual press release on the formation of or our participation in Tiaki Wai.
Thank you, Ros. Simon.
Our discussion on these the asset transfer and all the other documents went relatively smoothly. All of our councillors feel intensely, as I know all of you do, the concern that our households are feeling over the costs coming at us. And there was careful questioning by our councillors over a whole lot of aspects, but I think there was unanimous agreement that there really is no alternative, because dealing with the backlog of infrastructure is simply beyond what our council and other councils was able to do. Us councillors have had the benefit of multiple workshops to tell us why these things are needed and what's going on. Our residents haven't. And I think that's the big task ahead of us, almost as big as actually dealing with this backlog, to show our residents that this isn't Wellington Water and the historical problems that's had, that Tiaki Wai isn't just Wellington Water with lipstick. And we've all got, as you said, Dame Kerry, we've all got a role to play there.
With compassion and understanding in the current. Anita.
Thank you. Yes, we passed it yesterday. Obviously, it went through. Like everybody, the issue is the cost. Water is a God-given right, but some of our community are really going to struggle, obviously. It's been 10 years, as one of my councillors points out, since the incident in Napier. It's taken us a long time to get here. We're doing it because government's making us, let's be honest. The previous government at least had funding in there, but we are doing this at our ratepayers' costs and our residents' costs. So to see the press release where we get a $5 discount yesterday because you've reworked your figures was, I have to say, $5 is nothing. But let's not go there today. It's pleasing that we've got it through, and we look forward to getting on with it. So thank you.
Okay, so that's great feedback from all of you, and congratulations. As I say, it hasn't been easy, it's complicated. And the level of not just misunderstanding, it's more apprehension and concern in our communities is heightened with what's happening geopolitically and inflation, the cost of living crisis. So, okay. We're now going to move on to an update on the Commerce Commission proposed economic regulations. So do you want to join us at the table now, Will and Michael, Dougal, anyone else that's down there that should be at the end of the table? So, Will, is it you that's going to update us on the Commerce Commission?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll actually get Mike to provide this update, and then I'll provide a more fulsome update as Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Dame Kerry. So the Commerce Commission has published a consultation package on additional economic regulation for Tiaki Y. The two key matters that have been proposed for consideration are additional information disclosure commencing 1 July, so obligations will be applied to Tiaki Y, and the ability to apply a performance requirement regulation tool as a secondary component of that consultation process. So I will start with Tiaki Y is supportive of this. Tiaki Y understands the importance of regulation and the additional protection it gives to customers. So what we would say as well, though, given where we're starting from, the use of particularly the performance requirement regulation tool should be proportionate to where Tiaki Y is and reflect all of the other obligations it has as we start up and get moving. I think the other important note is there's a very fine balance here between regulatory oversight and the responsibility of the board and governance. So we need to make sure between the regulator and ourselves that we get that balance right. We see initially performance requirement regulation should be a backstop. Ultimately, we would expect to not only meet the expectations of the additional information disclosure, but we intend to be very transparent about our performance generally. That's what customers expect. That's where we are going. And if we're not doing that, then that's where, in my experience, performance regulation really matters. So we're not delivering, absolutely bring it in. And ultimately, price quality, in my own experience, using, for example, building blocks methodology is an entirely appropriate process for regulation. I have 10 years of experience with it and have no fear for that and look forward to it, but there is a right time for everything.
So that's only recently that's a verbal update. Are we going to get something in writing, an assurance to all the councils?
Assurance on the Commerce Commission?
Yeah.
So the Commerce Commission obviously will be considering the various submissions that it receives. They'll then make a determination, and then our intention would be to update this committee in terms of what we're going to do once that is determined.
Okay, thank you. Anyone got any questions for Michael? Yeah, Ros.
Do we have any? So at the moment they are proposing the information disclosure and the performance standards. Do we have any idea what it will cost to deliver on those compliance requirements?
A question that we're considering as well, Ros. So at the moment, no, I can't tell you exactly what those costs will be. It will be dependent upon how that, if they do apply the tool, how that is applied and the extent to which it's applied. So we have made that point in our submission that the Commerce Commission should also be cognisant of the balance of providing appropriate regulation and the cost of doing so and making sure that the value is there for the money we expend.
If I may, Madam Chair, just to expand on that, there are direct processes that Tiaki Y will pay for, so the external verification, the Commerce Commission's own fees and costs, plus, of course, our costs in doing that. So there are certainly, regulation is by no means free, as anybody in the electricity or other sectors will tell you. But on the flip side, too, to Mayor Little's point before, good regulation, the benefits do exceed the costs. They're a net good thing for consumers, providing, they're at the Goldilocks level of being just right. I think it's a good thing for consumers and will build confidence.
Anything else? Okay, thanks. So we're now up to your board chair report, please, Will.
Thank you, Dame Keary, and just to acknowledge Deputy Chair, Mayors and iwi leaders. This is the last time I'll be reporting solely on the progress of establishing Tiaki Y. So as from the start of July, of course, we will be operating and reporting on our performance and progress as well. That said, there is a long tail of post-establishment activities that will take years, and I know that has that will be something felt across councils as well as ourselves during that process. I would like at the outset to just formally acknowledge all the work from you and your colleagues as elected members, but also particularly your chief executives and chief financial officers who have worked enormously hard over the last few months. And they have done an outstanding job, and it's a fantastic thing coming in to chair an organisation like Tiaki Y to see the collaboration, the intelligence applied, but also just the sheer hard work. And I know in the Wellington Water Committee this morning, people commented on the impact on people. And that is definitely true for the folk at Wellington Water, and I know for many of your staff and councils as well. We're making good progress towards the 1st of July. You'll see in the establishment update that we do still have a small number of critical tasks that we are watching very closely, and also maintaining a tight control of scope. There are the two immediate priorities, as you'll see indicated, are around customer care and billing. Both have progressed significantly since our last meeting, but they're both under pretty close attention. And I'm also just conscious that that the acknowledgement, I don't know if Pat is still here, but we would not be where we are without Pat Doherty's leadership and that of his senior team at Wellington Water. They have really made this possible despite having a significant number of operational priorities. You'll see under item 9 around the establishment progress that a number of work things have been progressed. Obviously, the water services strategy, and I thank you for your feedback on that, and we'll discuss that later in the meeting. But as we said, we also have wasted no time on beginning on water services strategy 2, which needs to be a much more complete and have less caution in its estimates, because we need to use the next year to get much better about that. We are also really focused on how we build a better picture of the asset base. I know that from both Wellington Water and councils, that's been a challenge over the first few years, but certainly the amount of effort that we need to put into understanding what the assets are, where they are, and what their service performance is a really high priority. One of the early gains from forming Tiaki Y has been the ability to place, to get the economies of scale. And one example of that is the ability to place insurance. We have been able to secure more comprehensive insurance on better terms than you've been able to do previously. And that process is near completion and obviously will be in place prior to 1 July. But I know some people sometimes struggle to see what are the benefits. It's a very clear one, first of all, in terms of managing that backstop. We have been around as a board and with Mike around the network, including going on to Moa Point, and you know about the enormous amount of work going on in there and the progress that there needs to be for the South Coast community. We also saw the impact of heavy rain and the stormwater being overwhelmed in South Wellington, and just to acknowledge Mayor Little for both your work on the ground, but also the letter which you sent us required progress. I responded to you a couple of days ago, and I think most of the partners have seen that response. I hope you sense our commitment that while we've got stuff that is pretty much clearly in our own bailiwick as far as water and wastewater, stormwater will be a shared responsibility for decades to come. And I am very interested in how we give effect to the collaboration around land use planning. Clearly, we can't rely on pipes. We are going to have to work across the assets and so on together. And I look forward to working with all councils through that. I'm, obviously encouraged to see the growing discussion about Tiaki Wai, and there's a lot on public forums and a lot of views on social media. Some of them not probably quite as aligning with our view of the facts in some areas. There's a high volume of questions coming in, which is a good thing. On the other hand, we have a team that's operating in establishment mode and looking forward to having the full organisation together on the 1st of July to make sure that we can respond to questions. And I'm very conscious that mayors and elected members are shouldering a lot of the community consultation and discussions around the impact of explaining it, and we do appreciate what you're doing, and we look forward progressively to joining you, as Mike and I have over the last while. I do want to address water meters because I know that there's a high level of concern, and I just want to reiterate a couple of points. The first one is that the board's view is water meters are likely to be a very helpful thing. There's been a bunch of questions as to whether or not we think they're good. Water meters have been really helpful. They help people control and manage their usage, and they help the Water Authority and us to find leaks. However, we have not decided how and where the meters will be rolled out. As mentioned this morning, there's been some work done on an indicative business case. The costs and the benefits for those are by no means met our threshold as far as what we'll be doing before we commit to it. I can assure people they will not be getting a bill for $4,000 in their letterbox, as some have suggested. The water meters cost, once decided, will be rolled out. They will be funded across years, and they will be done within our estimates and within the pricing. So there is no extra bill coming for residents. And we will also have more to say about it. Once we've got our view clear, it is a significant decision, so that means it has to be discussed here. And depending on the significance engagement of our approach, particularly around the ownership of strategic assets, is a key thing you have set out and your expectations of us. So decisions as to ownership, leasing, and I think they are important issues for us to discuss with you and with the community. One thing's for sure, we will not be selling our customer database, which some have asked if they can just help us all out with everything. And because while they might be our customers, they are your citizens, and we will be operating in a very transparent way around our procurement once we've decided what we're going to do. And I've said before at the last meeting, we welcome the ongoing oversight that you'll provide, and also with the Commerce Commission's scrutiny as we manage things today. And I'm very conscious that with the financials, there is a large cost of catch-up. It is very hard for this generation to bear the costs of that catch-up, and we will be working as hard as we can to spread that out, but also, unfortunately, a bit like the story of when's the best time to plant a tree, well, the best time was 100 years ago, the next best time is today, we do have to get on with it. This will be a shared effort, and we are very grateful for the working relationship that exists with your officers, and we will play our part in working well in the future. And lastly, can I take a moment to acknowledge our establishment team, a number of whom are here today. I won't name the individuals other than to specifically acknowledge Dougal List as Establishment Director, who I know has worked beside you and the Wellington Water Committee in its previous version. Dougal has done an outstanding job to span what is genuinely a mile wide and an inch deep of issues. I am grateful to all the members of the team. Thank you, Dougal, and thank you all. Madam Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Good. So your report's here and also your monthly progress chart, all the things you're doing. So you're happy to answer questions on anything?
Very much so.
Ben?
Look, I do have a few questions. I'm happy to do them in two tranches.
No, that's fine.
And they are all establishment update related, but once I'm done, you won't hear from me again for the day. So, look, firstly, thank you for that clarification just now and this week on the approach Tiaki Wai is going to take on water meters and the publicly making clear you're not working to that 590 million Wellington Water business case. I think this is probably more for you, Michael. There's just some things in the RNZ article on Tuesday I just wanted to clarify a little bit. So you've said that Tiaki Wai are going to take another look at the costs of water meters, but the plan is to install smart meters. It seemed implied to me in the article, and I may have just be my own bias, but there could be a high degree of complexity or installation for smart meters versus basic meters. So I just want to check, is that the case? Is there any material difference between installing a smart meter or a basic water meter? And if so, do you have any idea of cost?
There is a difference in cost. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's also a significant difference in benefit. So we're looking at both of those. So if you weigh them up, based on the initial estimates, smart meters did cost more, but in the scale of the program, not significant over mechanical meters, if you like, so the walk by. So it was a pretty, from our perspective, pretty clear to us that the benefits at the strategic business case level of smart meters over mechanical meters or walk-by meters was enough to justify the additional cost. So you don't just look at cost, you look at benefit, as you would know very well. But it has to be, ultimately, all of this has to be tested through the next stage of the business case. There was another version. I've experienced it, which is the drive-by meter. I would never recommend them for Wellington. Having been here 5 minutes and driven around the streets, that will be a disaster. So that's where we're at the moment. But I want to reassure you, this, as Will said, meters must show value for money, benefits over the costs, and we need to be able to demonstrate it to everyone. So there's a lot of work to be done, and some of that will involve pilots and trials to prove up the costs before we get too far. So not leaping too far ahead. The team, what they did up front did what I would expect. They brought to the board, hey, here's our first case view of it. And that is really a decision about, do we go any further or don't we? Decision is yes, we go further. Now we dig deeper. Pardon for the pun around digging.
Oh, no, it's fantastic. That's clarified a lot from there. Next one, so when this committee met at the end of last year, post-election, as Wellington City, we did want to put forward some changes to the SOE to try and reflect some of that public sentiment through the campaign. And to be frank, put some political guardrails and protections in place to try and avoid some of the recent media, and it's something we advised we couldn't do at the time. The key thing we were really looking to do was along the lines of having something in the SOE like Tiaki embeds open contracting arrangements, improves access for private plumbers seeking to make repairs between Tobies and private properties, and ensures that it does not engage in heavily centralised contract management practices that fail to embed competitive tension. I read that out because it basically still remains a hill that Wellington City will die on. We're unanimous around the table as 18 of us. We've had support at a ministerial level for that direction. We met with Mana Whenua Partners last week. They're sort of broadly of the same view. Apologies for the preamble, but what the question I'm coming to is, how do we operationalise that, knowing that it's coming in year 2, statement of expectations, so that from day one you're not going to make decisions in year 1 that are essentially going to be contrary to that direction? So you've got it pretty clear that's where we want to go, but we don't want you in year 1 sort of running off in this direction. Is it a letter like we sent on stormwater, amending the SOE? Is there another way to realise those in terms of those upcoming expectations? Sorry, long question, but...
I think there's probably a couple of bits to that question. The main one is that the board and Mike have significant experience around commercial contracting. So we're pretty confident in terms of that there's a bunch of work that should and can be done by plumbers and drain layers. There's work for the next size up in terms of the small to medium businesses. And then there's work that we really want the tier 1s to be doing. We will not be getting a plumber and drain layer to redo the Pencarrow outfall, nor will we be getting a tier 1 contractor to be replacing somebody's valve in Suburban Street. So when we come back with our approach to water meters, we will be setting out all of that. We totally understand and share the same view in terms of that it has to be the right solution. But more importantly, we all know from a local economic development perspective is that money spent in the community stays in the community, and you'll get that. There are some things which won't be spent in the community. Meters, valves, we don't make them in Wellington. We'll have to buy those in. But we want to see the local industry keep going. If I might just take a step back from that, the point that Helmut raised around workforce previously is also relevant, is that we need to be growing a workforce. Yes, there is a New Zealand component, but there's a Wellington region component to that. When you look at our forward projections, and yes, as we've said in the draft water strategy, we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we actually are strongly confident around those things. There is a ton of work to do, and we need people to do it. We don't have the people. We have a bunch of people. We do not have enough people. We need to be growing our workforce. So some of that is plumbers and drain layers. Some of that is our staff. Some of that is the small and medium enterprises. Mike and I had a session with the contracting community a month ago around that, and we will continue with that industry. So there's a long answer, I think, to your long question.
Fair enough. I'll do this. I'm happy to then sub out. Just in terms of the SOE, it would seem at least appropriate for the minor amendment around Tiaki achieving the FFO to debt ratio of 9% by 2030-31 would just be an appropriate thing to have in there. Can that be done for an editorial way? We're operating a Hutt City standing order, so I'm not quite sure, but something like it's expected that would be 7.4e, Tiaki achieve an FFO to debt ratio of 9% by 2030-31. It would seem appropriate to have that in the SOE. Now we're further down the track, but we don't have to have it in there. It would just seem we've come to that point having gone through.
Our preference in terms of those out year is that, to me, that's a more appropriate thing to be worked through as part of Water Services Strategy 2.
Next year.
By and large, we are taking on your increases for the coming year. And yes, we have provided a future price path around what's happening out there. But look, you all know that a bunch of the data underpinning this, which is data largely from Wellington Water and from councils, is ropey in places. And so I would prefer not to have a specific target in there at this point, because I think we need to use the next 6-9 months to actually get under hood and improve our estimates. I am more than happy to have that conversation going into Water Services Strategy 2, but I think right now, let's see where the numbers fall. For example, if we got to, say, 8% in the early 2030s, but actually 9% was going to take us a few more years, but that was going to reduce the pressure on households while still maintaining pretty close to covenants. If we can get LGFA to agree to that, I think that could be a better outcome. The alternative is what, essentially, in the absence of having a capital structure, is what the draft water services strategy would do, which is to rapidly increase prices to get to that. And you saw the impact of that on communities. So there is definitely a relationship between the pricing that is paid by consumers and the financial and balance sheet structure that follows it. So, in answer to your question, I would prefer not to have a specific requirement, but I'm expecting and more than happy to have that conversation as part of Water Services Strategy 2.
Oh, thank you. Feel free to allow some. I've got 3 more, but I'm very happy to take a break. Okay.
Are there other people want to have a go? Yes, I'll come back to you, Ben.
I'll sub in. Kia ora, thank you. I have a question around this due diligence process that you're going through and will continue to go through over the next year and longer. In terms of the asset condition, what can we expect from Tiaki Y in relation to when those further issues are identified with the network? What can we expect in terms of the communication to us and also to the community? As you said, the assurance of what that condition is ropey, and so no doubt there will be more surprises.
Yes, and I think there are a few layers. So the first thing is that, look, I know there's been a lot of commentary in terms of the past over the last while and what got us to this place, but I think we all rapidly need to move to the it is what it is situation, because the assets are now, in a month, they will be ours to be the stewards of, and we need to be updating as we find that out. We've placed both money and priority on Mike and the team to give us a better understanding of asset condition. It is also a critical thing for the Commerce Commission around things that many of you will be aware of Wellington Water's disclosures previously in terms of the assets and what category of asset confidence they have. So those are the Category 5 assets for those who dwell into detail. We need to be providing a much clearer view of what the assets are, and that'll be a progressive thing. We also need the ability to manage iteration. So some of the stuff that we'll discover in the first year In the second year, we'll find out is incorrect. And we have been talking to the Commission about how the information disclosure or the ID regime works as far as how we update information as we know more. We have 6,000 kilometres of pipes. I think we are doing of the order of 13 kilometres of renewals in the current year. Anybody who wants to do the maths on that realise there are many, many generations before we'd fix it. We have to massively increase our things, but we have to do it in a sensible way. I know that councils have had to fund things bit by bit, but to do asset condition properly, we need to be doing work where we come to an area, we do it, and we don't come back for 50 years. The idea of doing a bit, then coming back, and then doing a bit, coming back, is not only inordinately expensive, it's really disruptive to communities. And I think being able to do that. So your question around due diligence is really well made. We will be providing an ongoing set of updates to the community and to yourselves as we get clearer on that. Sorry, Mike's just going to add something. Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to add, to give you some comfort, or not, hopefully comfort.
Comfort, Mike.
Comfort, yeah. Well, we'll just be straight up. It's always easier, isn't it? Water Services Strategy 2 is already underway, courtesy of the people at Wellington Water, given we've worked through. We need to get started not on 1 July. We started basically straight away to give you some confidence about how seriously we're taking that. We're also immediately bringing in the development of an asset strategy or an asset management plan and an asset strategy also underway immediately. There are a lot of good artefacts and things that are already there at Wellington Water, and we are now in a position to leverage them and build them up. And absolutely, I intend to be transparent about the state of the network with the public, and Will and I will make sure that we come out and I want to be in a position while we probably haven't come out as much yet. We need to make sure the ground we're standing on when we make statements about where the assets are, they're substantial enough or fact-based enough that the community can have confidence in what we're saying. So we're doing a bit of homework at the moment and testing some of what we got. Some of it will take years to really get to the bottom, but I think we owe to the public a very clear explanation of the reality of where we're at, and we hope to do that soon.
Okay. Ros?
Can I please ask about insurance? So you mentioned that by virtue of the larger organisation, you've been able to secure a wider scope of insurance for a better price. But given that the councils remain the backstop for insurance gaps and you know where things go wrong and there isn't insurance forthcoming, can I ask what insurance gaps you believe you currently have, and are there parts of the network that you're choosing to self-insure or undertake any other kind of more unusual insurance models?
Well, firstly, there's nothing particularly unusual about what we're doing. We're not that special to need those. I don't want to go into too much detail until I've actually got the certificate back from the insurers, and that is not far away, but I don't have it yet. Overall, we want to secure moderate deductibles, which is essentially, the bit that you have to pay before the insurance kicks in. But we also want greater coverage. And there's certainly been some high deductibles that councils have had in the past, and we are confident that we will bring some of those back a bit from where they were. But the other thing is just how comprehensive they are in terms of what things they'll cover. If I may, from commercial sensitivity, I will not give you a really good answer until I've got those in place and can respond.
I guess it's just, obviously happy to wait until you've got the actual detail locked down. I guess just bearing in mind that it does have consequence for our councils in terms of the risk that we're taking on, it would be good to have those figures at some point.
Yes, and I think also as we head again into Water Services Strategy 2, without kicking every can down the road, is that as it gets clearer and as the insurance market understands more about what we do versus what councils do in the same area, is discussions about where the efficiency of various things are held. Stormwater is the classic one where there's just a lot to do. There's also assets where we share a lot of things in places between councils and ourselves. So I think happy to provide an update, but I think it will be something we'll explore over the coming months and years.
Okay, is that okay, Ros? So maybe an update in August.
Happy to do that in August, no problem.
Anita?
Thank you. Very basic question. I see your comms plan has started. I hear it on the radio. Your billing readiness for people. I had one of my councillors no idea about how to get a direct debit form or where to go, which I was quite surprised yesterday. You've already received mine. You can
Thank
do
you.
it. Well, you can do it weekly, monthly, but we're not telling people this. So I'd really like you to get that out there so that people know they can pay this way. So it's a bit like a power bill. So it's pushing that direct debit for people to do. And I just haven't heard that yet. I know you've still got a month, but if my councillor says it, I'm finding that worrying. So yeah, can you push that?
We will. Thank you for the feedback, and I haven't actually taken names in terms of who's filled out their forms recently, but thank you all thank you all in advance for doing it soon.
Simon, do you have any questions?
Along the same lines, I noticed that of all the things that have been monitored, and I realise the countdown is fast approaching, this payment and billing thing has not only got a red risk, it's got an arrow pointing up that the risk is increasing. And I was just wondering why that arrow is pointing up, I guess.
If I may, Chair, the report in front of you was prepared at 30 April. Since that time, we've continued to make good progress on both billing and customer. And at this point, we're feeling confident that everything will be in place for billing. The first invoices go out at the end of July or the first week of August, with the invoices due at the start of September. The reason it's red, it's just a very complicated system because we're working together with council. So obviously we rely upon your rating databases and systems to generate those invoices, and councils to generate and send out the invoices, and then again council staff to respond to those questions. We're supporting across all of that activity. The red really relates to the complexity of getting the solution, making sure everything is in place. By mid-June, we will be at a point where we have confidence to go live with billing. There is a possibility that one council may not be quite ready for billing, but at this point, we don't see that that is the case. So we are feeling confident at this point that we'll be going live with billing. And really, that's what the risk relates to. And going to your point, Mayor Baker, our communications approach is intended to align with that. So the first wave was really intended around who is Tiaki Wai. The next wave is why is Tiaki Wai, followed by how do you pay? And encouragingly, we've actually had quite a number of people, such as yourself, already set up those direct debit forms, which is great.
Ken, you don't have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I've got a couple of things I could say at the end.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Ben, we go back to you?
Three small. Just, obviously the benefit of Tiaki Wai's fresh eyes, new expertise to look over things. So what strategies have you been considering to get to improve efficiencies in delivery from where Wellington Water have been, including your risk appetite while working on the network?
Do you want to talk about that?
First thing is there are immediate efficiencies without me being here as CE, because to be frank, having one asset strategy, having one budget process, once you own the assets and therefore are able to leverage the debt, streamlined reporting will make a significant difference from day one. The fact that the staff now are already becoming a customer, hey, we're ready to go here. We're already up and running on this year's capital program. That in itself provides a range of benefits, with me just saying, hey, great news, we're here, we're ready to roll. We will also, starting with strategy and planning, as I said, we're already underway in developing that asset management plan. When you've got a clear asset management plan, when we've completed development of the criticality analysis and framework that enables us to decide what first, we will also get immediate benefits from that. But some of the other benefits, they are going to take time. I see the first year, make sure we deliver what we promised, set ourselves up to be the efficient organisation that delivers on its promises, and then we'll build out from W Water Services Strategy 2 through that period. And there will be a focus already on how do we do things more efficiently. But I've just got to ensure that everything is sequenced, because if we do too much change at once, we create chaos. So I'm just trying to get that balance right now. but I'm confident you will see the benefits and so will the customers.
So just take something like traffic management, for instance, in terms of risk appetite and deliveries. You've talked a lot about the internal efficiencies that come. You're saying that's a bit further down the track, and then when you start to look at when we do a project, have we got the risk appetite settings for traffic management or things along those lines?
So I'm not beyond what I would say. So a lot of our traffic management settings, I believe, are also developed in conjunction with council. So it's not about me just coming out and directing the staff, saying, by the way, we're going to have more risk appetite. I would say from a personal perspective as CEO, safety is going to be paramount for our staff and all of our contractors. So I'm not going to risk the safety of people. But at the same time, everything is open, Ben, for looking at how do we do this better, smarter, because that's why you brought Tiaki on, and that's what you expect of us. And we did it in my previous organisation. I'm confident we'll do it here. We will bring those savings through.
We're working with other infrastructure providers so that, we're coordinating below and above ground. So that when we do something, we're trying to be really efficient in terms of delivery and costs. Have you put much thinking to what's envisioned in place there, started to build relationships with power companies? Are we still in infancy?
We have had an approach by one of the power companies to look at how we can immediately get benefits, savings. I'm also talking to other water CEs, including Watercare. How do we get benefit by sharing the way we procure, opportunities around technology programs? We talked the other day about we need to recognise the reality here is if everybody's off competing for resources to build, same contractors, how is this all going to get done across the country? So one of the big focuses already for us as CEs is how do we work together to ensure that we build the capacity at the same time? So I feel like I'm here for a short time, but these are conversations that are already happening and not happening because necessarily of me, but because as an industry of water CEs, we know this has to happen across the country.
And if I can just add to that, Ben, we also have a chairs forum where all the water organisation chairs are meeting monthly at the moment. One of the things we're really conscious of is that there is no need for duplication. So if somebody's done a procurement or done an exercise, we all just need to jump on the back of that or use it. So as much as anything that the commercial market knows how to actually deal in a consistent way. So yes, there are things that we can do to optimise with providers. We've got some good examples going on out with the Te Waitaka Mori o Te Awa Kairangi Riverlink project out in the hut in terms of coordination between utilities. And we need to do more and more and more of that.
And if I could just close out and one other, hopefully, piece of encouragement for you. I have a pretty clear mantra at Wellington Water. I'm already getting the sense people are maybe a little tired of hearing it from me, but we are not special. We are absolutely not special. Everything we're trying to do largely is done before. So we are out there already saying, what can we get from elsewhere? Why do we need to reinvent? And, I'm already getting staff coming, I say, we've already found this. We can use this. So I learnt that again in prior experience, that most of what we do has been done before and we should be able to leverage what's been done before to save money.
That's very encouraging. And last one, thank you for your grace, Chair and Committee. CV under $500,000. Do you have a floor price for water? Because the tables that are out there indicatively start at a $500,000 CV, and some of the calculators people have built don't know what to do with anyone if their CV is below that amount.
So the reality is the individual detail for those low-value houses, they sit in the middle of the council rating databases. And we can respond to any individual thing, but honestly, providing a method of calculation for some of those would be quite problematic to do in a public calculator. You probably have all, as elected members, now got visibility of the variety of charging methodology that exists across councils and how that results in some fairly inequitable comparisons between suburbs, between cities, and people going, how on earth does this work? So one of the challenges I think we've got for the next while, which is an interesting balance as we develop the technology that's going to do it, the separation from councils. I know Wellington City's got big technology investments coming up yourselves, and actually getting to a process of rating and comparisons that works across residential, small commercial, and large commercial users is a significant exercise in itself. So the short run thing is we would probably be dealing with particular things as individual questions rather than trying to produce calculators. But goodness me, sorting out and getting a basis for charging for that. I would like to another thing just around charging, that I do have a concern around the charging for stormwater on a connection basis. So the law has set out a process where we must move away from capital value. All of you have capital value as part of your things. Wellington City is the most based on capital value out of the cities, but all do some element of stormwater. Stormwater per connection, I think, needs another go. I think if we look at some houses that have some properties, not just houses, some properties, big stormwater implications, other ones negligible. You should not just be allocating that on a connection basis, and maybe through self-me a little in the mayoral forum, that might be something that we might jointly go to government of whatever hue exists and say, let's work on this. We have flagged this with MCERT as well, obviously in one of their million priorities. But I think working together on a sensible approach for stormwater charging that reflects the land as it is, not perhaps as the way that we think about water and wastewater, will be a priority. That said, the law is the law. We know we've got to follow it. But I think in this situation, we need to do a tweak.
Okay, now I'm going to come back to you, Rosa. Just check, Helmut, do you have any questions here?
I did. Comments, possibly a question. An encouragement, perhaps. So I've already mentioned...
Just the last one will be fine.
Yeah. I've already mentioned strategic workforce development as a key priority, which you've double-clicked on too. Thanks, Will. So that's great. I do think that the social mandate for, needs to get... we need to... In fact, I'd very much welcome, Mike, if you've done that before. The creation of a social mandate in a transformative situation that we're sort of going through. There's a few ways we could skin that cat. I really would encourage Tiaki Wai to lean heavily into that for a range of reasons. They're probably self-evident. And then the last thing is a bit more of a parochial issue. So I wanted to be...
You're an interest at the beginning? I reminded you the other day.
There's nothing new. I'm going to say, I have already socialised this with our leaders here, so I just wanted to put it on the table for the leaders here, that Ngāti Toa's investment in infrastructure-related endeavours isn't for the money. We're encouraged for the outcomes, so we're keen to lean heavily into the achievement of the outcomes in our aotearoa. But we do have a particular parochial interest in Porirua being appropriately prioritised. And I have said that there's these guys.
Why don't we note your interest in this conference?
Yeah, absolutely. Where I'm going with it really is just that the Ngāti Toa looks forward to seeing the version 2, and particularly the prioritisation thing, so that we can have appropriate, transparent conversations about that. I'll leave that there.
Shall we note it as, have we got a deal for you?
Yeah, we're happy to be transparent, book open, all the rest of it.
I'm going to come back to you. Andrew, you okay? I saw you make a note for the regional forum. So, Ros, and then Ken.
Sorry, this is a super nerdy question, but I couldn't help myself. I was at the Stormwater conference the other day, and they had a presentation on pricing for stormwater, including a coverage of various different cities around the world that had used quantities of impervious surface to price. And Detroit, Michigan was one of the examples that they used in that presentation. Is there anything in the law at the moment that would stop us looking at a rating or a charging on the basis of impervious surfaces, potentially an A, B, C, or if not, down to the level of exactly how much percentage you have?
The short answer is no, we don't have a prohibition. We do have an express requirement to move away from capital value-based charging. And so I think that is. I think, however, it's probably a question for your colleagues in the TAs to go, how good are your records in terms of what is and isn't? But I think there's a really interesting exercise, possibly slightly nerdy, which is for people to go away and start thinking about it. But I think it's a conversation with the community as well. We have just had a very significant incident in South Wellington, and Stokes Valley. A man lost his life. We had significant impact on people's lives and livelihoods through that process. And I think having a think about stormwater with some separation from the way we think about water and wastewater, I'm not running away from the priority, but I think it does require a different way of thinking about it than perhaps things that are perhaps, a little clearer around water and wastewater. So I'd be very open to discussions around that. There are plenty of approaches, but I think getting something which is fair and has got an evidence base is there's still probably a hill to climb.
Okay.
I look forward to having those very nerdy discussions with you in the future.
Ken?
I might delegate that.
Thank you. We've just come through a series of 16 annual plan engagements in the hut over the and Tiaki Y was front and centre of all of those engagements, and I attended about 16, I think, nearly 500, and a real mix, as you're aware, Michael, of residents and commercial people, and very grateful for your contribution and your presence at the Jackson Street program towards the end of that process, Mike, for a number of reasons. Firstly, fronting up to the community. Nothing will destroy the confidence of our community quicker than uncertainty. There was certainly significant parts of that which were expressed directly to us over that period. But I just wanted to acknowledge, Mike, you came out and your answers and very candid with the people gave us all a lot of confidence that in spite of all the questions that have been put up, we have confidence in the strategy and the people. It's not easy. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Hasn't been an easy process coming in from, there were words like incompetent and inept have been thrown around alongside Wellington Water in the last few years. So you're coming into an environment that is hot. The questions have been, some of the questions have been meaningful, and we look forward to the progress yet, especially preparing not only our elected wing, which seemed, I think, pretty solid, Simon, that we headed in the right direction, but the big thing is giving confidence back to our community that nothing is quite as bizarre as some of the commentary on social media. And of course, as we all know, if you want to generate hate, post something intelligent. Cheers, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. So is that the end of questions for Will? Okay, thank you very much for your comprehensive update. So we're now moving on to the updates to the draft water services strategy, and I presume, but this is an open.
This is open.
Oh, mover. For the oral things? Yeah, because there's a redaction. Perry will move and Ros will second. All those in favour are against. Right, now we move on to the item 10, which is the update to the draft. And I presume, Dougal, are you doing this?
You're
going to do this, Will?
Well, I was going to just introduce and say we've got Dougal and Adrian Black who will basically take you through. We've obviously provided a bunch of detail and response. There's both the water services strategy feedback, the community charter, and the significance engagement policy, Madam Chair. So they're all things that are pretty germane to this committee's responsibilities. So happy to hand over to Dougal and Adrian, and we'll go to your questions as soon as you're ready.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just this paper provides a bit of an update on the feedback on those 3 documents that we consulted on, and in particular seeks the Partners Committee approval of the significance and engagement policy. And a little bit like the thanks from Will for the team, just really want to acknowledge Adrian and the leadership that she's provided, and the big team, both across establishment team, Wellington Water and with councils that have been involved in developing the water services strategy, which we hope will be out in the public before Adrian's baby is out in the public. And I'll hand over to Adrian to cover that.
Whose due date is the 30th of June. Thanks, Dougal. So I'll take the paper as read. I won't go into too much detail. I'll quickly run through each of the documents in summary, and then we can go straight to questions. So the bulk of the engagement feedback that we received was on the level of water charges, both for next financial year and the forecast or proposed 10-year increases. I won't go into details around how that's been addressed in the strategy. We've got the second paper, which my colleague Dave and the team will go through in detail around the financial settings and how those have changed throughout the strategy. But we have looked at that and taken that on board and made adjustments to the pricing path there. We also got a bunch of feedback around different elements of ensuring that the water charges were equitable across different households, so rural and urban households, the interface with rates and what that means for people. People are obviously concerned around, they've got the two bills now, what does that mean for them? And then in a few other areas, so we've made stronger commitments in some areas such as how we'll enable the local market, and the team here has already spoken to that a little bit around making sure that we've got the right contractors working on the right types of projects. We've made stronger commitments to Te Waiora Pareroa, the Pareroa Harbour Accord, and ensuring that Te Mana o Te Wai is embedded into decision making. So we'll work with Mana Whenua on linking that in a bit more strongly across Tiaki Wai activities. And then there was an expectation in the Statement of Expectations around establishing a customer reference group, and we've made a stronger commitment within the water services strategy to do so, as well as looking at other ways to get the community involved in decision making. And then I guess the rest of the feedback, a lot of it, as we anticipated, given the nature of the first strategy being a one-year strategy, is more targeted or can be addressed through the second strategy. So as Will has noted, we have been working with the team at Wellington Water on getting the next one going, and they're well underway with that, and the feedback that we got through this engagement period will be taken on board with developing up that second strategy. I'll pause there for questions on the strategy before we go into the other documents.
So in your summary of feedback, where there are lists of recommendations, you have picked those up and transferred them generally through in the first year, but all work forward for the next big one.
So in the summary document, the summary engagement document, there were a number of recommendations. We haven't picked all of those up for the first strategy.
That was quite hard to work out. There's long lists, so it wasn't clear how many you picked up, but a commitment to pick them up in the next strategy.
They will be addressed. Not necessarily.
I understand. Addressed rather than picked up. Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Can I just ask one more question before I open it to the rest? And I think it's all part, under Schedule 3 engagement, it's way near the back. What I found interesting is this level of engagement. You started off with inform and then consult and then involve, and it was almost like the wrong way round. It's like you're going to just tell people straight away, but the second lot you might consult them, and the last lot you're going to involve and collaborate, and it's almost... I know with something urgent like something blows, you haven't got time to do any of those, but the slow to medium one, I would have thought, I just thought it read the wrong way. If I was a member of the public, it seemed to me that you were going to inform me long before you thought to ask me or to involve me.
Thank you for that view. So that diagram is intended to be 3 separate pathways. So if we follow through the...
I get that. I just think that it was the wrong way round. But maybe
we can easily swap that around.
I wouldn't have had inform first. I would have started off with I want to involve and collaborate with you. Secondly, there are sometimes when I'll consult with you, But lastly, when it's really urgent or it's really small, I'm like, oh, this is huge, but I'm just going to tell you about it. And it's just a perception thing. One or two
Thank
nodding.
you.
You can turn it around, use AI and switch it around.
We can do
right,
that.
I'm going to check if anyone
Madam,
else has
Madam
got...
Chair, we've got very strong feedback in there about people wanting to deal with humans. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure I should be reaching for the chatbot at this point.
I mean, this picture. Just turn it round. Right,
We can do
questions
that.
for Adrian, please. We don't want to upset her and get that baby arriving early. Any questions for Adrian? It's a huge amount of feedback. It's an amazing consultation. And I guess when you're going to take them into account and where they may end up urgent and in this first strategy and where they may... So we haven't gone back to everyone, I presume. They've all had their feedback acknowledged and that it's going to be taken into account.
So as part of the Have Your Say website that we used, which was the predominant form of collecting the feedback, we did give people the option to register to receive additional information, and we got, I think, close to 400 people register that want to be kept in the loop. So our intent is to send them that engagement summary and kind of keep them informed that way. We haven't gone back to individuals, every single person, other than I think they received an automated email once they registered to provide their feedback.
And yes, I'll just do my last question. Under water service priorities, I think people don't really, and it's something Ros has repeatedly raised, when they think about water, they think about potable water and they think about dirty water, sewage water. They don't always connect stormwater and pipe stormwater as against the wider stormwater issue. In your question 3, you don't differentiate even stormwater out, so people weren't able to list that as a... it's just for you to think about in the future. We asked lots of questions about potable water and sewage water and billing and all that, but that particular question, water service priorities, it wasn't listed in there as a priority, in my view. Simon.
Well, it's just a really quick comment in response to the last comment made. It's when people were asked how they'd like to hear from Tiaki Wai, email is streets ahead of the other methods. And it was just a lesson learned at Hutt City Council where we have collected email addresses for rating purposes, but you're not allowed to use them for any other purpose, and it's become a real roadblock for us. So if there's any opportunity when you capture emails for like giving feedback on this strategy to somehow get permission from people, can we use this email address to keep you informed, it's well worth taking that opportunity.
Thank
Very
you.
helpful insight. Thank you.
Anita.
Yeah, it was follow up on that actually, because we now do a newsletter every 6 weeks that goes to those email addresses, so they're getting information about council that we used to publish when we had papers, but now we're just doing it actually direct to those mailboxes, and people are hearing more from us, so it's really good. But thank you for putting the Harbour Committee in there and the Consumer Charter, and giving the residents a go on the panel. So our council's happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also just think, we did hear a bunch of feedback around the customer charter, that of course there's more than just paying customers involved who care about water. And so I think there's some really good stuff in there, and goes to Helmut's point before about how do we progressively work with elected members and council staff as we increase the community's awareness of what's going on and find the right ways to communicate with them.
Barry.
This week is Uphart's 60th birthday. Hooray. And I went to celebrate with some of our residents who were around when the proclamation of Hutt City was made. One of the residents was the wife of the late Stuart McGaskill, whose lakes in Upper Hutt, the lakes in Upper Hutt are named after him. She mentioned how difficult it was when he was pushing for that project, for people to accept the need for that project at that point in time. And now any of us around the table could tell you, obviously, they are essential, and it would be crazy to think we wouldn't have them. So I come to question 4 in your survey, which I appreciate how you've framed. Please indicate your level of agreement. Is it important to get on with network improvements that will deliver better services for our children and grandchildren, even if it means paying more through water service charges? And I note that roughly it's 50-50 between the people who are pro that and the people who are cautious on that. I think that's a pretty stellar result, to be fair, in a cost of living crisis, that we have so many people willing to ensure that our children have the right things that they need. Like, we now have access to these lakes that were advocated for. What is your interpretation of that in terms of taking that into the water service strategy? It's a difficult topic, and with a 50-50 result, I guess I'm just keen to hear your analysis on what that actually means.
I think from a board perspective, we're cautiously heartened by it. It is a thing where, as you say, the cost of living pressures. Where, look, there are some people who respond, and I'd love to be able to pay more, and I want to do this, but I don't have the money. And I think that's a very real situation. There is a strong sentiment, among many, that they want to see improvement, but it's very hard to do it within the fiscal, implications for households and families. I think, on the other hand, that we do have some really, really big decisions as a community to make over the next while. Do we need another lake? And what's our approach to managing a drought? How much do we care about running out of water in a drought? How much are we prepared to work? We've got some big decisions around the Penkaroa outfall. It's 18 kilometres long, I think, in 4.5 metre sections. It leaks. And that's a big decision for the community. A failure at Seaview will have enormous implications for our harbour in Whanganui-a-Tara. So I think that, again, I go back to my point, cautiously heartened. I love the fact that we've got a whole bunch of our community who are keen to see us do it. We have to work out how we can do it in a way that community can support. And I think that also behoves us to use every means at our disposal to spread those costs across generations, to procure them and get the contract for them really efficiently. It does place a weight on us, which is what you expect us to do, which is to work really hard to deliver those outcomes. So no doubt you'll gather that there are mixed feelings, but we understand the obligation and responsibilities on us.
It's
Thank
a
you.
national discussion as well about storage lakes and dams, and not just resilience in the network, not just here.
And wider regional.
Yeah.
We've got our things obviously for within our region, but over the hill or up the coast, there are plenty of issues around water, and in a crisis, everybody's going to have to help each other.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that, so can I? My sense is that we'll get a more mature public conversation about risks with Tiaki Wai than we might have with the structure that Wellington Water had, which, as you say, was short-term funding and more reactive. Is that fair to say that Tiaki Wai are keen to daylight some of those longer-term risks in terms of things like drought, in terms of things like major asset failures, and then put that to the community in terms of this is the cost to mitigate those risks?
I might respond to that one, if you don't mind. Yes, in simple terms, we are, because we have to make, part of what I feel we have to do is we have to demonstrate the counterfactual to the public. 50%, that's great, but I don't think we've made, I haven't been here long enough, I should be careful, but my sense is we need to really paint the counterfactual. So what is the alternative?
Yeah.
So what if we don't do this in terms of, if we lower our expenditure, what does it mean in 10 years and 20 years for people? So they're fully informed, right, to the best we can do around the choices they're making about future generations paying. And as I said, in regards to asset risk, we're already starting on that. And in fairness to Wellington Water, they'd already done a lot of work. We've just got to pull it back up, make it strategic. and share it, because if we don't share that information, I think it's pretty hard for people to understand why we are asking for this money when we're receiving all of this debt and other support. Why do the bills have to be so high? We must absolutely make the case, but as I said right at the outset, when I make that case, and Will makes that case, we want to make sure we're standing on solid ground, and that's some of the work I'm having done at the moment.
If I might put a sharp edge to that, when I got the phone call about Moa Point, I thought it was Seaview. And so if you want to bring that into sharp relief, you've got a very long outfall. You've got a plant at the bottom of the harbour in the eddy of a river. So that's just how significant it was. And I know that Wellington Water, with the support of Hutt City, are doing what they can to shore up, the plant. But you have got a plant at the end with a bunch of risks. And I know the work that Mayor Baker, you and your council have done on the Porirua facility, but there's unconsented discharges. We have unconsented discharges out through the short outfall at Moa Point. That is part of the design of the plant. That's not a thing. Goodness me, we've got some great conversations to have with the community. But first of all, we need to stand on solid ground so we can talk about those.
Okay, any more questions? So thank you Adrian, for the work you've done, and we've got some recommendations here. We receive and note it. We note the proposed updates for the water service strategy, community charge, significance and engagement policy, and we approve it as attached item 2. So I've got nodding from Anita and Andrew. All those in favour, aye. Against. Okay. So before we go into public excluded, there's a meeting schedule set out on page 68, which is 28th of August and the 4th of December. Somewhere I read the 10th of June. Is that in everyone's diary, or am I just making that up? Wendy?
We may need
Should we signal that?
meeting.
Oh, Democratic Services.
Yeah,
do that,
I'll get it through Democratic
Certainly
Services.
in some of the papers there's a suggestion that we might need another meeting on the 10th of June. That's signal. But if everyone's comfortable, I'm sure all your staff have diaried these in your diaries. 28th of August, 4th of December. Move Simons, second Perry. All those in favour, aye. Against. Okay. So now, any questions for anything we've done today before we go into public exclude? Ben?
There's just one that arose quickly from that discussion, but didn't feel directly pertinent. When Tiaki Wai's Facebook presence, will you be taking over the Wellington Water presence? Will you be setting up from scratch? Invariably you're going to get tagged in about 100 posts per minute once that happens, but I'm just trying to understand what your comms approach is to when Tiaki Wai can be taggable, because there's a leak on my street.
I might just delegate that one, if that's okay. If I might say, we might need to just do a bit of work on those dates with the Secretariat, Madam Chair, just before they get finally locked in, if that's okay.
They just have been finally locked in, Will, but you can, as long as they talk to me first, yeah.
Thank you. Janice.
Just to pick up on the Facebook page, yes, we will be... the Wellington Water Facebook page and website will become the Tiaki Wai Facebook page and website. So all the people who are currently following Wellington Water and keeping informed will become the Tiaki Wai audience. We made a deliberate decision not to try and build another audience, rather continue with the audience that is there. We are conscious that there's a lot of interest, and we are looking at getting much more proactive in that space in the next few weeks. So,
Anything else? Okay, now I have to read, and I'll need a mover, that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of the meeting, namely responding to the Partners Committee feedback on the draft water services strategy and the Tiaki Wai Limited amendments to the Constitution and Partners Agreement. And I'm going to ask also that the Tiaki Wai representatives remain at this meeting after the public's been excluded because of their knowledge and expertise relating to the items. This knowledge will assist the meeting in relation to the matter to be discussed. That'll be moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Mayor Baker. All those in favour? Good, thank you. Motion's carried. So now we're going to ask all those who aren't allowed to stay to leave, please. the afternoon.
Closing karakia. Unuhi I te uru tapu nui, kia wātia, kia māmā, te ngākau, te tina na te wairua I te tara takatū, ko iara I rongo whakaraihia ake ki runga, kia wātia, ai rā, kia wātia, hau, pai marire.
Thank you and good luck. So, for those who are able to join me and staff from both the Symphony Orchestra and the New Zealand School of Music. What?